What's happening, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast. You're here for a Tuesday tune-up where we are here to help you be healthy, wealthy, and happy. I did those out of order today. I'm not sure why, but we got a couple of guys coming in from Canada today. They're going to help us be happy. They're going to help us be healthy. And I think in turn is going to help us be wealthy on top of it, which is pretty cool. Zach, Tucker, and Jeremy Grater are the founders and hosts of The Fit Mess. For nearly a decade, they have pushed themselves to learn more about their own physical, emotional, and mental health. This has created a passion for using their acquired knowledge to help others. As hosts of the show since 2017, they've had the opportunity to speak to a wide range of guests, including some of the biggest names in health and wellness. Zach, Jeremy, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No, it's my pleasure. I like what you guys are doing, obviously. I mean, this is literally the world that I love to be in, the space. So I guess I'll start with, how did you guys start The Fit Mess, and where did this all come about?
Well, I can talk about that. It was a cold, stormy Tuesday night. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea what night it was. Yeah, I think you need a little bit of a backstory to, I think, both of us. We didn't just, decide to do this one day, but I spent probably the first 22 years of my life like living through trauma and all kinds of mental health issues and physical health issues, just bad placement by my parents and poor decisions by me a lot of the times, just in a really, really bad place. And I needed to fix myself up and make myself better. So when I was 22, 23, I really just went on a journey and started exercising, started thinking differently about my life, quitting smoking, stopped drinking Mountain Dew, stopped eating at McDonald's every day, eating Chinese food every day, literally every day. And it took a long time. Like, you can't change these things overnight. So, it was for me, it was almost 15 years of a journey to get to a good baseline. But then I really dove in and really started going deep into, my consciousness and my inside. And then I met Jeremy, and we really started having, these, at the beginning, we sized each other up as two guys. We're like, hey, how's the game? And neither one of us like sports that much, so we can't talk about the game. But we,
it was quite an interesting sports ball event that I watched. I enjoyed it immensely. How about you?
Yeah, exactly. That's about how it went. But over time, we kind of, the walls came down a little bit, and we really started to have these conversations about being new fathers, being husbands, being friends, being, all these different things to all these different people, and how hard it is, and the struggle, and what we're doing to be better. And I was working on myself, and he was also starting that journey himself. So he was asking me questions. But we just got open and vulnerable with each other. And that really led to me going, hey, we don't see other guys having these conversations. This is very taboo. Like, nobody talks about this. And Jeremy had a history in podcasting, and I'll turn it over to him in a second. But I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should get on a podcast and talk about this stuff. And his answer to me was, absolutely not. Hell no.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I had a long history in podcasting and in radio, and none of it included being an expert on anything. It was always about bringing in the experts, shining a light on other people's knowledge, other people's experience. So I was wildly intimidated by being the one saying, here's the things I'm doing, and they can work for you. And so I was very resistant, but then I did dive into the genre and tried to figure out, like, could we make something work? And I found plenty of people were doing what I'd been doing all along, is bringing in the experts to close the knowledge gaps, share my personal experience, share parts of my life, share parts of my story that might be helpful, make other people feel less lonely. And so when I discovered that there was a way to do it, I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so since then, it's really just been a journey of trying to help guys like us, who at the beginning of trying to take better care of themselves, not really knowing where to turn, trying to feel a little bit less alone, trying to just shed some light on how to get started and build that better life.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it is this not common thing that guys aren't sitting there being vulnerable and talking about their feelings. That's pretty well known, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know why. And the other thing that's so fascinating to me, you literally said, man, I was eating junk food. I wasn't moving my body. I felt like shit. And guess what? The rest of my life was terrible. And it really is pretty simple. If you think about it, like you're feeding your body, you're feeding your mind, you're feeding your brain, your heart, your health, your gut, and they're all correlated.
Mm-hmm.
But why the heck don't we talk about it? Again, we want to be happy, we want to be healthy. What is the taboo subject? And guys, is it starting to go away as we're getting more aware that that's all bullshit? And it's like, let's talk about the fact that we have feelings. Let's not stuff that stuff way down and explode like a volcano and be a crazy guy. Like none of that goes well for society. So why is that taboo thing there, and how do we eradicate it?
Well, to answer the second part first, we're doing it right now. We're having this conversation. You're asking me that question. You're a guy asking me, another guy, that question publicly in front of an audience. That's how we start to tear that wall down. But that wall is built, and I'm sure your experience was similar as children, right? Like, especially boys, when you scrape your knee, quit whining, rub some dirt on it, and walk it off. What's the big deal? I had an experience recently. I was hanging out with some friends that have a son. I have daughters. So my experience has always been very trying to just nurture them, take care of them. When they get a boo-boo, don't rub dirt on it. It's going to be okay. We're going to, help you through this. But I was with friends that have a son, and I felt my own sort of enculturation where when I saw him getting hurt or was having those experiences, I had this weird, why isn't he just walking that off? What's the problem? It's just it's so hardwired into us and so trained into us as young men that we see it as odd when other men express vulnerability. And so we have to actively tear that down. We have to actively re-educate ourselves to become more open to being vulnerable, to understand the full human experience and how we're not all these just stoic robots that walk around emotionless. We have needs, we have feelings, and when they don't get addressed, like you said, we erupt like volcanoes, and it's just detrimental as hell to society and to our own personal health.
Yeah, and what's crazy to me is like the fact that what we're talking about, expressing your emotions, will significantly make your relationships better with your spouse, your significant other, whatever that is, with your kids, telling them you love them, giving them compassion. It doesn't make you weak. And that's the biggest thing I want to break down. Like, look, when I see a grown man cry, I don't think, man, that guy's a pussy. Like, what is he doing?
Right.
I look the other way. I'm like, wow, that guy's secure in the fact that he's able to show emotions. Now, I was not raised that way, so we're clear. I was taught boys don't cry.
Yep.
And that is the hardwiring, but it is a fascinating thing that you felt that as you're watching your buddy's kid, like, hey man, get up, stop being a little whiny baby. It's like, man, that does run really deep. So talk to me about how you're incorporating, obviously, the fit mess, and you're talking physical, emotional, mental. So we're talking all parts. It's a very holistic approach. So does it start with the food, guys? Does it start with moving the body? Is there you start here and then you're going to find your way there? And I know my own answer, but I'm curious what you guys have discovered in your process in the show and what you do as a company.
Yeah. So I'll say for me personally, like the foundation for me is really what I eat in the movement of my body. If I'm not doing those two things in at least an 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time being really good about it, 20% of the time doing whatever I want. It's hard for me to build on top of all of the other tools and techniques that I need to be healthy around that. But I think, we do hear it a lot. Like, what's the one thing you can do to be better? Like, what's that one thing? And there's never one thing. Like, it's 100 little things. It's 1,000 little things. But at the end of the day, there actually is one thing, and it's your mindset. And it's being open to being wrong, being open to change, being open to like all of these beliefs that we have as men, that we have to be tough and, be men. Like, what if that's wrong? What if we can do all the things that men can do, but we can bring in some of the feminine qualities to be better human beings, right? That, in my opinion, is the one thing that everyone can do is look at your mindset, start opening up about being wrong and questioning those beliefs that you've had for your entire life. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe there's a better answer. Maybe there's a life-changing different opinion that you can take on. And then you can go down the road of exercising more, eating better, once you've got your why figured out based on all of these beliefs that you've questioned. That's my biggest thing is, what if I'm wrong? And just really be open and honest and curious about whether or not you are or not, and find out what the right answer is.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is I've never met anyone that knows every single answer to the world's problems. It doesn't
Mhm,
exist.
mhm,
So why are we afraid to be wrong? You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
It is, and it's these basic questions that if you ask them, because I see it with executives all the time. I didn't want to fail. I don't want to be wrong. I'm like, tell me something that's ever been built amazing that didn't fail, wasn't wrong at some part of the plan and the process. So it is interesting. I want to ask you, because you said raise your level of consciousness. And obviously, my mind immediately goes meditation. And I'm really talking about, quieting the mind. And I talk about this frequently on my show. Is that what you guys are alluding to? What does that mean for you, raising the level of consciousness for you guys?
I think for me, it's really just a matter of awareness. And it does start with questioning those beliefs. And some of them can be as simple as, why am I opening the pantry again in the middle of the day? Am I
Mm.
hungry or am I stressed out? Why am I feeling so overwhelmed right now? Is it because I've got too much on my plate, or is it because I'm busying myself with a bunch of nonsense that doesn't actually matter? It comes back to like focusing on what's right in front of you, what actually has to happen. I'll give you a perfect example. Our show is called The Fit Mess. If you look behind me, my kid's desk is a mess. Their headphones are over here. I'm surrounded by chaos. What's important? Talking to you right now. This has all of my attention. I live like this most of the time, but I have to focus on what's the next step on my path. How can I get where I need to go next by just what is the next step? Because if I focus on, boy, I've got to clean this entire house before I do this interview, it's just not, I'm going to get overwhelmed. I'm going to quit. I'm going to call you. I'm going to freak out, canceling. I don't have time. All of a sudden, everything that should be simple is overly complicated by trying to take on too much at once. So, really, just getting clear on what is the priority, what has to happen right now, what can I schedule for later, what can I ask for help with. Meditation is a great way to do that. It clears your mind, helps you really get centered on what your values are, what's important to you. But then there's just simple time management stuff. Like we talk all the time about the Eisenhower matrix, and just like doing a mind dump and then categorizing that stuff. What happens today? What happens later next week? Who can I get to bring in to help me? There's all these tools that you can do, but it really just comes down to figuring out, what do I have control of? What can I do first with that information, and what's beyond my control, and just let it go, because there's nothing you can do about it anyways. So to me, that is one of the critical pieces, is just really staying focused on what's right in front of you that helps you get one step closer to whatever the goal is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, what's cool about that is obviously it's so counterintuitive to the selfies. Let's filter it. Let's make it look this way. And
Yeah.
I watched a video this morning where it was showing social media and it was this perfect waterfall. And then it showed reality where it was like, all right, there were some filters on this thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love what you're doing. It's like, look, this is a mess.
Mhm.
This is my life. There is a messy middle. It happens all the time. And what I wrote down is perfection is the enemy of greatness.
Yep.
And that's what, Zach, you were talking about. You're like, look, man, 80-20 is my goal here, which means 20% of the time I'm going to screw up. I'm probably going to eat the wrong stuff. I might drink too much. Whatever your vice is, I probably am going to do that, but I'm only doing it 20% of the time rather than 60-40 or 50-50 or 20-80 the other way. So now that you mentioned that about your show, I love the name of your show because I think it's beautiful. Talk to me about self-awareness, because you said that came out as you were talking, as being aware of what's happening. Let's question ourselves. Why am I thinking this way? This is something that can continue to grow and we can get better at, correct?
Absolutely. Every day. I think, this is something that if you ever get to a moment in your life where you're like, you know what, I think I'm good. I think I've grown to the point where I'm okay. I've done everything I need to do. You need to have a really, really hard look at your life again. I know for me, this was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. I was all about the career, all about the car, all about the money, the external things. Like, it needed to be flashy. I wanted to impress people on the outside, and I had this life altering moment where my job changed, and I went from having a huge team to no team, and I lost my entire persona, disappeared overnight. And it was a horrible moment for me, but it was a great moment for me, in that I realized that like what I needed to focus on was on the inside, behind my eyeballs, not in front of my eyeballs. And that was a great day. It was a really great day. In the moment, it was absolutely horrible. But looking at what I, again, going back to what I believe, what that mindset is, and focusing on who you are as a person, it literally changed my life, those many years ago.
So, and I apologize, guys. I broke up. Literally, you want to talk mess? I told Jeremy before the show,
Yep.
the camera was not agreeing with me. I'm on a new camera. I apologize, brother, that I missed what you just said, that last part. But I'm so glad you kept going like a pro.
It was absolutely brilliant. I guarantee.
Yeah, you missed it. It was pure gold. You're going to want to use that as a social media clip because, man, the fire that he brought was just hot.
So, Nisha, when you get this, we got to go somehow capture that back from StreamYard. Hopefully they got it. We didn't. Guys, talk to me about your show because you've been doing it now for 6 years.
Yeah.
Wow. How many episodes? How's the show going? Has it evolved and changed? And just what's happening? Tell people about the show so they can go connect with you and go check it out.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of conversations like this. We're just trying to shine lights on other ways to just take one step closer to being a better human being. I mean, everybody on this rock is just operating on their best guess. So, we're just trying to help people realize that and realize that there are a million things you can try. We've published, I believe 171 episodes as of right now. And, we don't do 171 different things. Absolutely not. But there are a lot of great ideas and we do implement a lot of this stuff into our lives. But we're thinking of ourselves, 10, 15 years ago, where we're like, God, I'm just so sick of my own shit. I want to get out of my own way. I want a better life. I want to feel better. I want to just function better. I want to be a better dad, better husband, whatever. So we bring in, the knowledge experts, the people that have done the research to give us the data, the science behind it. And we share our experience, either implementing it or sharing why we need that knowledge because it's lacking from our lives. We want to help the 10 years ago us that's trying to figure it all out because it's a lonely place to be, especially as you go down this path. Once you start making these changes and you start realizing a lot of the connections you have, a lot of the friendships that you have are based on things that you don't want to do anymore. It gets real lonely real fast. And so we're just trying to create a community for people that want to live a little better, be a little bit better people, and just figure out how to do it one step at a time, day by day, because that's the only way to truly do it. It's nearly impossible to become a different person overnight. So we just want to introduce a bunch of different small steps that they can experiment with and see what works for them.
That's amazing, guys. I mean, 6 years running, continuing to do it. You're helping people obviously every day, but you're also, this is what I think people miss on podcast hosts. You're doing it for yourself as well. I'm guessing that was probably the precipice of the show to begin with, is like, look, I'm screwed up. I got some challenges here. I want to get better. Oh, let's share the journey along the path. Mm-hmm. Guys, I'll just give you open forum since my questions got all screwed up with a little delay.
That's all right.
Anything I didn't know enough to ask you that you want to make sure to share with the audience before we wrap up?
So I think just one thing that Jeremy was starting to get into about not being alone on these journeys. This stuff is really hard, and we use the word mess in our show very specifically. When you're looking at Instagram and you're looking at Facebook, when you're looking at all these people, influencers who are telling you to just do these 6 things and you'll be a better human being, or you look at all the pictures and everything's perfect and all that. It is not perfect. Like we talked about earlier, like making these changes is really hard. And in some cases, you got to go to some dark places that you don't want to go to. And there's going to be a lot of crying. There's going to be a lot of pain and there's a lot of suffering. But I say all that not to scare you away to not going down this road. I say that because like the reward at the end of it, of like facing all of those things that can cause you pain in your life, that reward is so huge. Just as a quick example, like the last 2 months of my life have been incredibly stressful from, work, personally, just things that probably 15 years ago, I would have said, F it, and walked away from all of it. But today I've faced all my demons. I've gotten through all of this stuff to the point where Yes, I'm overwhelmed. Yes, I complained to Jeremy for about an hour straight yesterday. But I was able to work through all of these issues, and I came out, a little unhappy about some of the situations, but okay with who I am as a person. So again, like, it's really, really hard, and I don't want to tell anyone that it's easy. It sucks to make a lot of these changes, and it's really hard to get into it. But once you get through it, once you get over it, once it becomes routine, once it's part of your life, you'll never go back to the way you were.
Well, and if I can put an exclamation point on that too, like the illusion that any of this is going to lead to a perfectly happy life without struggle and without challenge is just that, an absolute illusion. Your life will always have struggle. It will always be difficult. There will always be something in the way of what you perceive as happiness. It's part of the way your brain is wired. The sooner you accept that and learn to face it and lean into it and understand that challenge, that struggle, whatever it is, that is the path to growth, the more enjoyable this experience becomes. Because without it, how boring would that be? If you just sat on the couch with your feet up with all of your problems solved, what's the point? What's the point of being here if not to overcome things? So lean into the struggle. Like, really, when you find that obstacle, when you find that challenge, understand that is, to quote the Mandalorian, this is the way. That's how you get to become a better person, is by facing those challenges and overcoming them.
I love it, man. Like the military says, embrace the suck, guys. It's going to suck. That's okay. That means you're growing. So guys, you guys are awesome. I am so grateful for you to be here. I'm also petrified that this damn Wi-Fi is going to go out on me again. Where should people go find you guys, connect with you guys online?
We're here on YouTube. We're on whatever podcast player you are currently listening to this on, or if you want to check out our website, that is thefitmess.com.
Boys, amazing job. I love what you're doing. Keep up the amazing work, because we need to be talking about it. You're doing an incredible job, and thank you for taking the time today.
Right back at you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Guys, I mean, look, they're talking about things that we all need to be talking about: being vulnerable, dealing with our demons, being happy, being healthy, being wealthy. I told you these guys are going to deliver, and they did. Make sure to share this out with someone you know, because I guarantee a man or a woman, someone that is not doing this, that's not being true to themselves, and they're struggling internally, and that's not a great place to be. Make sure to share this out. Until next time, I appreciate you all. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.